All
All
right.
right.
All right,
Cool.
guys. So what's going on? Today I have my brother, and when I say brother, I mean my blood brother, Zachary Goodwin, with me, and we are going to dive right into what I've been discussing the past couple weeks, which is the issue with the pharmaceutical industry, and we're also going to touch on marijuana as well, cannabis, and medical and recreational use. So I mentioned in my last video, Zach, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but um, 70,000 people in 2017 died from drug overdoses. Um, 70% of that number was directly from opiates. So that's a problem for many reasons. But it's becoming more of an issue because they're becoming more available to the general population, and the pharmaceutical industry is absolutely to blame for that because the addiction starts typically with prescription medications, because when you have oxycontin and drugs like that for pain, that's probably the most popular one. Once people become so addicted and they lose their jobs because addiction's taken over their life, or for many other reasons, they switch over to heroin, um, because it's much cheaper and it's easier to access. You don't have to have insurance or any of that junk, and then they usually OD off that. But not only that, but another statistic that I think is kind of mind-boggling is every year, according to the American Medical Association, 106,000 people die directly from prescription medications. So this is separate from overdoses. This doesn't include overdoses, and it doesn't include like wrong prescriptions. This is 100% from side effects. Just you're taking the medication, the proper doses, you're doing everything right, but you die.
That's wild.
Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on the pharmaceutical industry and those statistics.
Well, I wasn't aware of those statistics for one thing.
Yeah,
That's pretty wild, yeah. Um, I would say, man, especially the fact that that's like prescribed amounts that
yeah,
people are taking. That's insane to me. I mean, that just furthers my opinion on what I think about the pharmaceutical company and cannabis in general. I'm definitely pro cannabis, and we were talking a little bit earlier today about smoking is obviously not good for you. I
yeah,
think smoking cannabis is a better option than taking pills long term in most cases. But I don't know, man. I personally have just had my own personal experiences with being prescribed the pills and then using cannabis instead. And I've known a lot of people that have done the same. And I'll say, in my experience, anyways, especially when it comes to like epilepsy and things like that, I've known a lot of really cool people that are really close to me that have had some serious issues with that stuff, and they used cannabis as an alternative to some really hardcore prescription drugs. And man, I seen a wild difference. It's really astonishing. And I think, just from what we know about cannabis, it seems like a healthier option. And from what I've seen, it's pretty much the results speak for themselves. You know what I mean?
yeah. So I know, but for people watching, like, how long have you been smoking? Like, when was the first time you smoked?
So the first time I smoked would have been in high school. I was kind of a late bloomer, so to speak. I mean, all my friends smoked for a long time, and I didn't really do it on a regular basis till I was probably about 18.
Yeah,
So I did what everyone else told me it was okay, like drinking and taking pills and smoking cigarettes, stuff like that. And I thought it was the smarter option at the time until I started getting into cannabis and I kind of started switching things out. Like, you know, I used to smoke cigarettes for 10 years and I kind of made the transition with cannabis to get off that. And I think cannabis can be used for a lot of good things like that. But I really didn't start until I was like 18. And once I started, I pretty much used it on a regular basis. Not necessarily every day, but I mean, I've pretty much used it every day for, 10 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
With some breaks in between, months here and there, but mostly every day.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously you have experience and have seen a lot of people use it for different reasons, whether it's recreational or medical purposes. But yeah. So it's funny because the first time I'd ever I'd been around weed before, but the first time I actually smoked it was with you, and I think I was 14 or 15
Yeah, I
at the
remember that time. That
yeah.
was
And look, dude, I'm no expert by any means. I mean, basically from 14 to like 17 or 18 was kind of my party years, I would say.
right.
Um, so I mean, I've smoked weed and, through that time tried different things. I mean, I never tried like hard like coke or anything, but
Yeah,
pills. I mean, in school, um, pills and prescriptions were popular because, you know, you couldn't get high. I mean, because you would reek of weed at least for a little while.
right.
Um, and obviously like the physical side effects, I guess, with your eyes being red and stuff. And you couldn't drink, obviously. So pills were like the best option for us because if you wanted to get some high, didn't smell, you could just pop them quick. You could have a bottle this big and have
Yeah,
20 pills in there.
easy.
Bike, yeah, Vicodin, Adderall, anything you can think of, Ritalin. Um, that was the thing back then. But yeah, man. So I'll play devil's advocate when it comes to marijuana because, and I've told you, but I personally, like I said, I've smoked weed plenty of times. Um, Obviously, not as much as probably a lot of people that will watch this, but I've experienced it enough to where like it's not. I don't necessarily love it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm also not like a marijuana advocate. I'm not out there encouraging everyone to like hop on the train because let's be honest, and I maybe you could agree with me on this, but I think there's definitely good use for it. I think I would absolutely encourage it over prescriptions in most cases as far as like pharmaceutical industry prescriptions. Um, but a lot of people that are advocating for marijuana just want to get high. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
my friends, people I know, people out in Colorado, maybe not obviously you specifically, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like want to push it and say it helps for medical reasons, but you just want to get high, and that's fine. But just be honest. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I'd say there's a greater percentage of people that want to use it for recreational use as opposed to medical, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my thing is like the transparency because like there's this mindset of either like marijuana is awful or like you just want marijuana to be legalized because it helps people with cancer or something. But there's also a middle group that's like, no, like let's be honest, like I just want to get high. I don't care about either of those sides, which is cool. But anyways, yeah. So as far as prescriptions go, I think the reason I'm concerned about the pharmaceutical industry is because I think for so long we've been deceived into thinking because this is a legal process, that it's okay and that there's nothing wrong with it and that we're good to go. But I mean, it's alarming when you have zero deaths like directly from marijuana, like zero deaths, right? I mean, again, we could argue about fatal accidents in different states or other countries where THC was in the um, victim's blood,
Right.
or the person driving or whatever. I mean, that's a separate argument. But as far as just smoking weed and dying, like that just doesn't happen. But yet, the imagine cities the size of Cedar Rapids, basically Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is 120,000 people. So basically, one of those cities per year is getting wiped out completely, just from prescription medicine, which is like alarming. I mean, that's concerning that we think it's like, oh, we're good to go. Um, in most of these prescriptions, uh, these diseases are preventable. Um, we could talk about diabetes, um, blood pressure, cholesterol, you name it. A lot of these through diet are preventable. And when it comes to, whether it's epilepsy or pain or anxiety, different things that people take prescriptions for, marijuana is also a good way to, fix those issues. So,
Yeah, dude, I think it's important to touch on the fact that a lot of these things that people are taking pills for are preventable,
yeah,
and they're taking this as just kind of an easy solution. It's easy to pop a pill and see the symptoms disappear, but it's not always easy to eat healthy and stay active and stay disciplined with it. And when people can just pop that pill, that's the route that a lot of people go. And I think it's important to understand that that's a band-aid solution. It's only going to be a temporary fix. And if you don't get to the root of the problem, then it's always going to be a problem. So
absolutely.
so if you can fix it through some exercise and diet, then why not go that route?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that because something I've touched on is that the pharmaceutical industry is not in the business of health, but they're in the business of symptom maintenance. And the whole idea behind this, and the same thing with a lot of these, and I hate this because I work for a company that directly contributes to obesity. Well, I guess I don't do it directly, but indirectly. But like the CPG industry, which is the consumer packaged goods and fast food industry, alongside of the pharmaceutical industry, um, really are very similar in this way, where the pharmaceutical industry is basically planning on these people. They don't want the problem fixed because they want them to continue investing their money into this company. So they just want to sort of cover up the problem and make you, um, basically just get you to the spot where you're able to get by. And they're thriving off addiction, and that's what's concerned. Excuse me. That's what's concerning with them and the industry I work for. With obesity, like these companies thrive off addiction, and people want easy solutions. Like when it comes to obesity and overweight, people don't want to hear that it takes hard work and to eat well. They want to find that pill that'll help them lose weight quick. They want to have the gastric bypass. Anything that's anything other than hard work. And same thing with prescriptions. Like again with diabetes. I mean, when I worked at the nutrition company I worked for, there was countless people that I met that were on statin medications for cholesterol, that took specific vitamins and did specific things with their diet and were physically active, and they got off those statin medications. Same thing with diabetes. People who had type 2 diabetes, which is typically from diet. I think it's like 98% or something people with type 2 diabetes is preventable. And these people, with the change in their diet, hard work, and consistency in that, were able to get off insulin. I mean, we could go on for days about it, but that's the issue with our generation, bro, is the instant gratification. Like people want it now. They want it fixed now. The less work, the better. The lazier they can be, the better. And that's why we're here, basically, dealing with this issue.
I agree. And it seems to be becoming more of a problem with that instant gratification with the new generation. You know, like it's definitely like noticeable in our generation. I'd say more so than our parents' generation.
Yeah.
But it just becomes worse and worse with time. I think it's probably, you know, mostly technology to blame, you know, with iPhones and or smartphones in general, and just, you know, you can press a button and get anything you want these days, from, you know, just a simple answer to food to shoes to music. You know what I mean? It's it's what we're accustomed to at this point. But it, what it comes down to is there's nothing can that you can, you know, use as an alternate to hard work. That's what it comes down to in my mind.
Yeah. No, I agree, dude. Yeah, I do think that yeah, it's a combination of the advancement in technology. I agree. And I'd say that's probably one of the root problems as far as like, you know, stemming over to obesity and stuff and prescriptions. But I mean, because think about it, dude, like in every aspect of life, you know, hundreds of years ago, like we had to work for it. So like hunting for food and planting our own crops and harvesting, um, building our own houses or whatever, shelters or whatever you want to call it. Heat, like we had to have heat in some form. We had to make that heat by ourselves. And we could go on and on and on and on and on. But now we don't build our own houses. We don't fix our own things. We don't make our own food. We don't do anything. I can literally sit in one spot for 10 hours straight. I can get food sent to my house and eat it off the couch. I can get groceries delivered to my house. I can watch anything I want to in the entire world through internet, whether it's TV, movies, YouTube, live TV, doesn't matter. I can talk to whoever I want. I can play whatever games I want. I have remotes, controls, anything you can think of, and that's we've it's a conscious decision to not be overweight. In most cases it's a conscious decision to help prevent a lot of these issues when it comes to taking pills. um, but I think people just need educated, and all you need to know is it takes hard work, in that in most cases, again, I'm not knocking modern medicine or all prescriptions, but in most cases prescriptions are a joke. And if you truly believe that there's not major corruption issues in the pharmaceutical industries, then you need to wake up and open your eyes a bit, because if you do some research or just look at reality, I mean, it's right in front of our faces that they're gonna start going after the marijuana industry a lot harder as time goes on, because the more traction the marijuana industry gets, the more money that's going to pour in from the tobacco industry. Like I mentioned before, you know, tobacco industry, alcohol, pharmaceutical, these companies are starting to lose a lot of money, dude, because people want to smoke, people want to get some sort of feeling that other than sober. So, you know, alcohol is losing money, and people are understanding that, hey, if I smoke marijuana, there's not 90 possibilities of death if, you know, there's a or 90 side effects. So I'm gonna try that route. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, dude. And not to change subjects, but I'm going to bounce back just a little bit to what you're talking about a minute ago, because I think it's important to touch base on this aspect as well. And kind of goes back to what we've always been used to just as human beings in general. And, you know, pills are a pretty new thing as far as human beings go. And, you know, we've always had that hard work that I was talking about. We've always had to go out and, you know, get our food. We've had to, you know, make gardens and go hunting, and we've had to build our own shelters. And, you know, it's like the amount of physical work that a person would put in 200 years ago, even as opposed to now, is is insane. You know what I mean? It's probably what someone, a normal person that goes to a gym and hits the workout really hard does today. And that's like, you know, an elite human being that was just a normal person back in the day. And I think it's important to touch base on that because that's what we're, you know, genetically designed for. So you have to put that into perspective and you have to understand what your body needs and wants. Or, I mean, you're never going to be happy because your body's not going to function properly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if we're touching on obesity and that in general, like we got to get out of this victimhood mentality and start taking responsibility. According to AMA, it's less than 5% of people that are overweight or obese is due to genetics. I mean, so you're talking 4% of people who you see may have like a thyroid issue and legitimately have a harder time staying fit or healthy. But 95% of people plus are it's environmental impact. It's decision making, and we want to make every excuse in the book and have this victimhood mentality to not take weight and the responsibility on our shoulders, and that's we've created that culture. So not only is that the case, but we're encouraging it and we're pushing that. And it's a problem, dude. I mean, it's almost in every aspect of life. Like we want to, you know, I don't know, play the victimhood card, and it's silly. But
Yeah, I'd say that's becoming more common as well. Just being the victim in general, dude, because I see it all the time, man. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like people like me and you are a dying breed. You know, we're pretty hardworking people. We want, you know, to just better ourselves and better the planet and the people around us. And a lot of people just don't have that mentality. I think, I mean, I'll go back to technology on this and, you know, just say everyone wants that instant gratification. And that's probably, you know, a huge reason for it. But I don't know. I feel like technology is only going to get better with time. And that instant gratification is only going to become easier and easier. And everything is going to become more accessible. And just, it's going to probably create a lazier generation as time goes on. And man, I mean, people like me and you will be able to push the generation of people to work hard and better themselves. But I'm kind of scared at the same time to see what the next generation is going to be like, because man, if this last generation is the way they are now, and they've gotten that much worse from the previous generation, what is it going to look like on this next generation? You know? Yeah. if we're not here just posting videos like this and putting out our knowledge, and people like us don't play their part, then it's just going to continue to spin out of control, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I agree. In my whole thing with this, bro, is, you know, since we've sort of covered both topics, when it comes to like the problem of obesity in the pharmaceutical industry, like I want to do it in a way to, like, I genuinely want to have an impact on people's lives, and I feel like this is probably one of the best platforms to do that, because as far as our generation, especially, this is probably the main source of information and source of news that people go to. And but on the same token, I'm tired of people beating around the bush and trying to, like, you can't impact someone's life when you're not truthful. Because at some, like, love is truth, right? And if you're not gonna love someone, don't love them, but don't pretend you do by holding their hand. Like, bro, if you were snorting coke all the time, or you were doing meth, like, I it's not love to just like hold your hand and be like, dude, yeah, that's awesome, bro. Like get totally high off meth and do your thing. That's awesome. That would be a shitty thing for me to do.
Yeah.
But that's the mindset of a lot of people now, whether there's specific lifestyles that people live or drugs they're doing, or even people who are severely obese. Like you think it's love because you're just letting them go, but love is not holding someone's hand. Love is truth, and
Yeah.
we're slipping away from almost the definition of what truth is and what love is, and I think that contributes to the problem too. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I've noticed that in the new generation as well, like I don't know. I mean, we are just holding people's hands, man. Like everyone wants their hand held every step of the way, and that's not the way to go about it. You know what I mean? We need to be honest with people, and we need to be truthful. And the real world it's hard sometimes, and it's there's you can't play games. You can't pretend that a pill is going to solve all your problems. You know what I mean? And everyone does. And it's until you can get that mindset to understand that it's going to take some work to reach that level of happiness and just health in general, you're never going to get there. You just, I don't know. It's frustrating to me because most people, it seems like they can't even wrap their mind around that concept of just getting healthy and reaching happiness through health instead of through drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the easy way out. That's the easy solution. And I smoke cannabis, like I said, on a regular basis. And yeah, I get high and that brings me enjoyment and fulfillment and whatever. But I work very hard to stay happy. I get up and, I do yoga and I meditate and I eat healthy and I exercise on a regular basis. And if I choose to smoke a joint at the end of the day, I feel like I have that right and I can make that decision. But it's not destroying my health. It's not destroying my life. It's not causing problems the way that I see pills and the pharmaceutical industry. The way that that's causing problems is just a lot bigger problem in my eyes, and that's why I go. And another thing too is I feel like we were raised to believe that the pharmaceutical industry is the right way, and that cannabis, especially cannabis, is like this evil thing. That's if you smoke it, it's going to ruin your life. It's going to make you go crazy and all this. And so I think that's why I push so hard for cannabis, is because I was pushed so hard in the other direction. And once I started experimenting myself, I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't the way that it is. It's actually quite the opposite. And cannabis isn't perfect. There's pros and cons to everything, but I feel like cannabis is a lot better solution. And so because of the way I was raised and the things that I've seen, I'm always going to push for cannabis as opposed to pills.
Yeah. It's funny, dude, because I remember, man, and you may not remember this, but I was probably, man, I was probably 10 or 12, I would say, maybe a little, I don't remember, somewhere right around there. It was a little bit before you started. But I remember one of your friends, I'm not going to name him here, but I know who it is. And I remember you stopped hanging out with him because you said that he was smoking weed. And when I was that age, like weed in general, like I looked at people who smoked weed like junkies, like they were a meth head. And which, I mean, either way, you shouldn't like, you know, hate those people. But that was my mindset. And that was the culture, at least when I was that age. That was only 15 years ago, where someone who smoked weed was like a junkie and they were a piece of trash, basically. And I remember that conversation because you stopped hanging out with them, and now you guys are friends again. But it's just an interesting like the culture shift when it comes to marijuana. I do think a lot of people start to get it now, and starting to embrace it more. But I'm gonna play the devil's advocate again here because I think it's also important. Again, I would absolutely encourage marijuana over prescriptions, probably 95% of the time. However, I also think it's important to touch on addiction, because that's what we've been talking about this whole time with prescriptions, with food, cigarettes. I think addiction to not physical withdrawal symptoms, but like psychological addiction when it comes to marijuana. Because there's a part of me that I think it's very important to avoid prescriptions and probably would encourage weed, but I think there's some people who let it like rule their lives, like similar to alcohol, bro, where that's all you think about. Like you're at work and you're like, dude, I just can't wait to go grab a 6 pack and just get a little tipsy. I can't wait to go grab 340s and slam them this Friday. I can't wait to just this weekend. All I'm gonna do is grab 2 30 packs of Busch Light and just sit back and watch football and drink because that's the feeling they're addicted to. They're addicted to that feeling. They want that's their baby. That's their everything. That's what they look forward to all week long. Is that feeling? Not their family, not their friends, not their hobbies, but they're addicted to that feeling, and it rules their lives. It's almost like a god. Like they worship that feeling, and that's why they work 9 to 5 because they can't wait to go buy that beer. And it can be the same thing with marijuana, in my opinion, from people I know. Like that's what you look forward to. You look forward to getting high. You look forward to at the end of the day smoking that blunt, smoking that joint, because you can't wait to get high. That's the feeling that you need that feeling. But like we also have to take a step back and be like, yes, it's probably the better option, but that can also be harmful to just rely on that substance because at the end of the day it's just a substance. That's not life. And we have to make sure people understand that um, it's good to just love life and the people around you. And that's a way to do it. It maybe help with your stress and stuff, but you can't let that rule you. You can't let that be like, dude, I'm gonna work this 9 to 5, save up so I can buy like an ounce of weed for the next few weeks or however fast you smoke it. I don't know, but um, you know
Yeah,
what I mean. So
yeah,
I
dude.
just think it's important to touch on that too because there are some people and probably a lot of people who have that mindset too. That's their everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's important to touch on the subject of addiction as well because um, at the end of the day, it is a substance that some people can get addicted to. And, I think it comes down to ultimately each person individually. If you're gonna be addicted to something, I feel like you're gonna be addicted to it. You just have that personality. You're gonna have that addiction in your life, whether it's pills or weed or junk food or TV. You know what I mean? You have an addiction and you have an addicting personality, and you use whatever it is to fill that hole. And it's the same with cannabis as it is with any drug, unfortunately. And I think it's a much better solution than pills or meth, like you were talking about earlier, or something harder. But it's still, people are still susceptible to being addicted to that, and you have to be careful of that. And once it's easy for me, even me, to do on, like, as a person that uses it on a regular basis, to kind of just let it spin out of control to where, man, I'm using this all the time to solve all my problems every time I'm stressed out. And man, I have such a positive outlook on cannabis anyways. And there's so many, like, it seems like a cure-all for everything and a lot of times, and it's not a cure-all for everything, but I use it for so many different things, you know what I mean? That I'll get to a point where I have to kind of pull myself back and be like, hey, you can use this substance to help you better your life, but don't get to the point where it's controlling you. If
Yeah.
you have to use it and you have to use it on a regular basis, then you're still causing a problem for yourself. And you may be fixing another problem, but if you don't solve the problem completely, then what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things where some people say it's a crutch, but I think to a lot of people it's life support. Like that is their. I'm glad you said that, dude, because it's we could say the same thing with food, with cigarettes, with alcohol, anything. Like we said, like it creates a weak mentality to where if you depend on anything other than yourself, or for me, God, um, you have a weak mindset. Like you can't, like you shouldn't let anything on this earth, a substance, rule the way you think, rule your actions, rule your relationships. And if that's all you depend on, then you're creating a weak mindset and mentality of dependence. It doesn't matter if it's weed. It's just the fact that it's a substance that you can't let rule your life. So to create a strong mentality is to make sure you depend on yourself. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, sorry, something just changed. But you make sure that you depend on yourself, your heart, and like I said, God, and that's where you should draw your strength from and your perseverance, and nothing else, in my opinion. So, um, but yeah, man, I mean, there's so many other things I want to talk about with this. Is there any other points you wanted to touch on?
Um, Man, I'll just say one last thing, and that is that if if you are on pills and you've been on pills for a long time, or any drugs, and they're creating a problem in your life in any way, try cannabis. I know it's not legal everywhere. I know that's not always an option, but if that is an option, just try it. You don't have to smoke it. You can vape it. You can try edibles. You can try even. You don't have to try THC. Even you can try CBD. You don't have to get high from it. You know what I mean? You can try complete, just non-psychoactive. That whatever works for you. But I don't know. I'm super emotional about this sort of thing. So like I have a real strong opinion about it, but just try it. I'm just gonna leave with that. Just try it, and it's not a permanent solution. You shouldn't rely on any substance for the rest of your life if you can avoid that. But when it comes down to the pharmaceutical company, it has it doesn't need any more help. You don't need to give it any more money and feed that monster. Really, and it doesn't hurt to try cannabis. If you can try a little CBD and it helps eliminate your seizures, I think that's a miracle. And if you can try something that's as amazing as that, then you should. And so I think that a lot of people have this stereotype that we were talking about earlier about cannabis, about how it's this evil drug that's going to ruin your life. Um, I think that you can spin down that rabbit hole and get caught up in addiction and let it ruin your life if you want to. But it can be a beautiful thing as well. And if you just open up your mind a little bit, maybe you can experience that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you, man. That's awesome. All right, bro. Well, I appreciate it. And if you haven't, Zach, if you haven't subscribed or liked, I'm sure you already have. But
Yes.
I'm gonna
You know,
continue. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna continue putting and posting videos up discussing this topic, and we're gonna dive deeper into it moving forward. But everyone else watching, like and subscribe, man. The whole reason I'm doing this again is I want to have an impact on people's lives. I want to make sure people are informed. Um, and even if it's 3 people that are truly changed in some way and it helps maybe get them thinking and change their mindset and they make better life decisions, that's what matters to me, man. So I want to do this full time at some point. I want to make sure I'm investing as much time and effort as I can into this and having these discussions and go from there. So
I think that's awesome, dude. And I think you definitely should. And thank you for having me on for this discussion. Like I said, I'm super passionate about this, and I'm glad I got to be a part of it. And spread a little knowledge of out into the world.